The autumn sun poured its golden light over the skyscrapers of Manhattan, creating a mosaic of shadows and reflections in the mirrored windows of the Mendoza Tower. On the 50th floor, Arthur Mendoza watched the city through the huge windows of his office, his reflection superimposed on the urban landscape like a restless ghost. At 35, he had achieved everything he had ever dreamed of. He was CEO of one of the country's largest technology companies, respected in the financial market and envied by his peers. Yet the emptiness in his chest was as deep as the chasm between the skyscrapers he gazed at. "Mr. Mendoza, the board meeting starts in 5 minutes," announced Charlotte, his executive assistant, interrupting his thoughts. Arthur adjusted his navy blue tie, an automatic gesture that masked his restlessness. "Thank you, Charlotte. You can tell them I'll be right there." As he walked through the elegant corridors towards the meeting room, his memories betrayed him again, taking him back to that fateful night 7 years ago. Elena's jasmine perfume still seemed to hang in the air, a sweet and torturous memory that haunted him. Her sudden departure, without explanation, had left a wound that not all her success had managed to heal. In the meeting room, executives in expensive suits waited anxiously. Arthur took his place at the head of the table, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Gentlemen, we're going to discuss the revitalization project for the Eastern District," he began, his firm voice hiding the storm inside. "The project will benefit several underprivileged communities," explained Richard Bennett, Director of Social Projects. "We would even like you to personally visit the local elementary school tomorrow. It would be excellent for our image." Arthur nodded mechanically, but something about the mention of the school aroused a different kind of concern. Lately, he'd been thinking a lot about family, legacy, issues he usually avoided. "Organize the visit," he replied, surprising everyone with his immediate interest. After the meeting, alone again in his office, Arthur found himself looking at an old photograph tucked away in his desk drawer. In it, Elena was smiling, her green eyes shining with a happiness he had never witnessed again. The paper was frayed at the edges from being handled so much. "Why did you leave, Elena?" he muttered to himself, as he had done thousands of times before. The next morning, Arthur arrived at the elementary school in the Eastern District in his black Mercedes. The contrast between his Italian suit and the simple atmosphere of the neighborhood did not go unnoticed. Children were playing in the courtyard, their laughter echoing in the fresh morning air. It was then that he saw her, a little girl of about 6 years old, with wavy brown hair and intensely green eyes, identical to Elena's. His heart stopped for an instant. The little girl was sitting alone on a bench, concentrating on a book that was too big for her small hands. "That's Sophia," introduced the principal, noticing her interest. "One of our brightest students." Sophia lifted her eyes from the book, meeting Arthur's gaze. Her smile, so familiar and new at the same time, struck him like a bolt of lightning. There was something about her, something that awakened long-buried memories and emotions. "Hello," she said, closing the book and approaching him with surprising confidence for someone so young. "Are you the man who's going to help our school?" Arthur crouched down to her height, feeling an inexplicable connection. "Yes, it's me. What are you reading?" "The Little Prince," replied Sophia, her green eyes shining with enthusiasm. "My mother says it's a book about love and responsibility." The mention of his mother made Arthur feel a tightness in his chest. "Your mother sounds very wise," he commented, trying to keep his voice steady. "She is," Sophia smiled proudly. "She works hard to give me everything, even on her own." Before Arthur could fully process the impact of those words, a familiar voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. "Sophia, it's time for class, dear." The world seemed to freeze. There, just a few meters away, was Elena. 7 years had not diminished her beauty, only added a maturity that made her even more impressive. Her green eyes, the same as Sophia's, met Arthur's with a mixture of shock and awe. "Elena?" The word came out as a strangled whisper from her lips. Her face visibly paled. Sophia, oblivious to the palpable tension between the adults, ran to hug her mother. "Mom, this is the man who's going to help our school." Elena hugged her daughter protectively, her eyes never leaving Arthur's. The painful recognition of the truth began to form in his mind. The green eyes, the familiar smile, Sophia's age. "We need to go," Elena said quickly, her voice trembling slightly. "Come on, Sophia." Arthur stood paralyzed, watching mother and daughter hurry away, The resemblance between Sophia and Elena was undeniable, but there was something more. Traits he recognized from his own reflection in the mirror every morning. The realization hit him with the force of a speeding train. Sophia wasn't just Elena's daughter, she was his daughter too. A daughter whose existence he had been completely unaware of until that moment. The world around him seemed to spin as the implications of this discovery consumed him. 7 years of absence, 7 years of denied paternity, 7 years of lies and secrets. The pain of Elena's departure took on a new dimension, much deeper and more devastating. "Mr. Mendoza?" The principal's voice seemed to come from a long way away. "Is everything all right?" Arthur forced himself to regain his composure, years of business training kicking in automatically. "Yes, I just need to sort something out urgently." As he walked back to his car, his mind was already making plans. He would find out the full truth, understand why Elena had chosen to hide her daughter from him, and most importantly, find a way to be part of Sophia's life. The echo of the past had turned into a deafening scream, and Arthur knew that his life would never be the same again. Elena closed the door to her modest apartment with trembling hands, her heart still beating wildly. Sophia ran to her room, excited to show her new drawing to her favorite doll, completely oblivious to the whirlwind of emotions that consumed her mother. Leaning against the wall of the small living room, Elena closed her eyes, trying to control her breathing. The cream-colored walls, decorated with photos of Sophia over the years, seemed to bear silent witness to her best-kept secret, a secret that was now threatening to crumble. "Mom, have you seen how nice Mr. Mendoza is?" Sophia's innocent voice echoed from the bedroom. "He liked my book." Her daughter's every word was like a dagger in her chest. Elena forced a smile, even though she knew Sophia couldn't see her. "Yes, dear. Why don't you finish your homework? I'm going to prepare dinner." In the small kitchen, Elena automatically began to prepare the macaroni and cheese that Sophia loved so much, her hands executing the familiar movements while her mind wandered back to that fateful night 7 years ago. Arthur's office was silent that night, except for the muffled sound of voices coming from the meeting room. Elena, then his executive assistant, had decided to surprise him with a special dinner to celebrate his promotion. The positive pregnancy test was burning in her handbag. She couldn't wait to break the news. It was then that she saw them through the glass doors. Arthur and Victoria Maxwell, the ambitious marketing director, engaged in a passionate kiss. Elena's world collapsed in a matter of seconds. The sound of water overflowing from the pan brought Elena back to the present. She quickly turned off the stove, wiping away a stubborn tear with the back of her hand. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. It was Olivia, her best friend and confidant for the last 7 years. "He found her, Liv," whispered Elena, trying not to attract Sophia's attention. "Arthur met Sophia today." "My God. Elena, how did that happen?" "He showed up at her school. A charity project or something." Elena took a deep breath, feeling panic rising. The way he looked at her, I'm sure he noticed. Her eyes, her smile. "You always knew this day would come," Olivia replied softly. "Maybe it's time to tell you the whole truth." "What truth, Liv?" "That I ran away pregnant because I caught you kissing another woman. That I decided to raise our daughter alone because I couldn't bear the thought of sharing her with someone who betrayed my trust." The sound of the doorbell cut through the conversation like a sharp blade. Elena froze, her heart racing again. "Mom, there's someone at the door," Sophia shouted from the bedroom. With hesitant steps, Elena approached the door. Through the peephole, she saw Arthur standing in the hallway, still wearing the same impeccable suit as earlier, but his posture revealed a palpable tension. "Elena, I know you're there." His deep voice came through the door. "We need to talk." Sophia appeared at her side, curious. "It's Mr. Mendoza. Mom, can we invite him to dinner?" Elena felt her world spinning. Every decision she had made over the last 7 years, every sacrifice, every well-intentioned lie, everything seemed to converge on this moment. With trembling hands, she opened the door. Arthur stood there, imposing as ever, but his eyes revealed a vulnerability she had never seen before. "Why?" was all he managed to say, his voice laden with restrained emotion. "Sophia, dear," Elena called out, keeping her voice steady. "Why don't you go and finish your homework in your room? Mom needs to talk to Mr. Mendoza." Sophia hesitated for a moment, her green eyes, so similar to her mother's, alternating between the two adults. Finally, she nodded and returned to her room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Elena gestured for Arthur to enter, closing the door softly behind him. The small apartment seemed to shrink at his imposing presence. 7 years, Elena, Arthur began, his voice low and controlled, but charged with emotion. 7 years without knowing that I have a daughter. You had no right to know, Elena replied, crossing her arms defensively. Not after that night. What night? Arthur frowned, genuinely confused. You just disappeared without explanation. I looked for you for months. I saw you, Arthur, Elena hissed, years of hurt overflowing in her words. With Victoria Maxwell. In the meeting room. The kiss. The intimacy. I was pregnant. I was going to tell you that night. The color left Arthur's face. Elena, it wasn't what it seemed. Victoria kissed me. I pushed her away immediately. It was her trap to get the promotion. Convenient? Elena laughed humorlessly. And why should I believe that now? Because I never stopped loving you, Arthur replied, his voice breaking. And now I find out that I have a daughter, our daughter, who doesn't know me. The sound of pages being turned in Sophia's room reminded Elena of where they were. We can't have this conversation here, not now. Then when? Arthur took a step towards her. How much longer do you intend to keep Sophia away from me? You don't understand, Elena whispered, tears threatening to fall. I've built a life for both of us. Sophia is happy, protected. Her world, our world, is simple and safe. She deserves to know her father, Arthur insisted, and I deserve the chance to be her father. Before Elena could reply, Sophia appeared in the bedroom doorway, hugging her book, The Little Prince. Mom, the noodles are burning. The smell of burning filled the apartment, breaking the tension of the moment. Elena ran into the kitchen, grateful for the interruption. Mr. Mendoza, Sophia called out, her voice sweet and innocent. Do you like macaroni and cheese? Arthur glanced at Elena, who had stopped in the kitchen doorway before answering softly. It's my favorite. Fate, Elena realized with a squeeze in her heart, had a cruel sense of humor. It was Sophia's favorite dish too, yet another of the many similarities she had tried to ignore over the years. Tomorrow, Elena finally said, avoiding Arthur's gaze. We can talk tomorrow, after Sophia is at school. Arthur nodded slowly, realizing that this small concession was all he would get that night. See you tomorrow then. Turning to Sophia, he smiled gently. Good night, little one. Keep reading. Books are magic. As she watched Arthur leave, Elena felt the weight of 7 years of secrets on her shoulders. Tomorrow, she knew, would be the day when she would have to face not only Arthur, but also her own choices and her deepest fears. The morning arrived with a fine autumn drizzle, creating a gray curtain over Manhattan. Arthur hadn't slept. He spent the night in his office in the penthouse of the Mendoza Tower, surrounded by old photos and documents that his private investigators had gathered in the last few hours about Elena and Sophia's lives. The cold coffee in his cup reflected his mood, bitter and distant. In the photos scattered on his desk, he saw moments he could never recover. Sophia on her first day at school, blowing out birthday candles, smiling without her front teeth in a playground. Mr. Mendoza, Charlotte interrupted his thoughts, entering the office. Mr. Maxwell is here for the 8 a.m. meeting. Arthur stiffened when he heard the surname. Maxwell? Yes, sir. Robert Maxwell, Victoria Maxwell's father. An old anger bubbled up in his chest. Robert Maxwell, the former council member who had orchestrated, together with his daughter Victoria, the trap that had cost him his relationship with Elena. He had retired years ago, but had apparently chosen this day to reappear. Send him in, Arthur replied, quickly putting the photos away. Robert Maxwell entered the room with the same arrogance as always, his impeccable gray suit contrasting with his white hair. Arthur, long time no see. What do you want, Robert? Arthur got straight to the point, standing up. I heard you visited a certain school yesterday. Robert smiled mischievously, and found some interesting surprises. Arthur's blood ran cold. Like you, Victoria always kept an eye on Elena. You know, it was fascinating to discover that she was pregnant when she disappeared. Robert sat down uninvited. I imagine you now understand why we kept that information under wraps. You knew? Arthur came around the table, his voice dangerously low. Did you know about my daughter all this time? Information is power, Arthur. Victoria was, shall we say, disappointed when you rejected her that night. Seeing Elena run away pregnant was an interesting compensation. Arthur gripped the edge of the table so hard that his fingers turned white. Get out of their lives. Now. Oh, but now that the secret's out, it would be a shame if the press found out about the great Arthur Mendoza's illegitimate daughter, don't you think? Before Robert could continue, Elena entered the office. Surprising them both, she had arrived for the promised conversation, only to find her worst nightmare materialized. "Mr. Maxwell," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Elena, dear." Robert smiled, rising to his feet. "I was just talking about you." "Get out," Arthur ordered Robert, his voice sharp as steel. "Now." After Robert left, a heavy silence filled the room. Elena remained standing near the door, her eyes fixed on the photos of Sophia that Arthur hadn't managed to put away completely. "You're already investigating our lives," she pointed out. "Hurt. Elena, it's not what it seems." Arthur approached cautiously. "I needed to understand." "Understand what? How I lived through those years? How I raised our daughter alone." She picked up one of the photos. Like hearing her ask about her father every night. The pain in Elena's voice hit him like a punch. "Why didn't you give me the chance to explain that night? Why didn't you confront Victoria?" "Because I was afraid," Elena exploded, tears streaming down her face. "Afraid that you would choose your career. Afraid that our daughter would grow up seeing her father torn between two lives. Afraid that I loved you enough," Arthur added softly. Elena angrily wiped away her tears. "I saw how ambitious you were, how power changed you. Victoria represented a powerful alliance with the council. I was just your assistant." "You were everything to me," Arthur replied, his voice embittered. "You still are." "Don't do that," Elena retorted. "We can't go back." "No, we can't. But we can move on, for Sophia." Their daughter's name hung between them like a fragile bridge over an abyss of hurt and regret. "The Maxwells know about her," Elena said worriedly. "They'll use it against you, against us." "I won't let them," Arthur assured her, his determination evident. "But I need you to trust me, Elena. For the first time in 7 years, I need you to believe me." Elena looked out of the window, watching the city covered in drizzle. "Sophia has a piano recital next week," she finally said. "She's playing Claire de Lune, just like you used to play for me." Arthur felt his heart squeeze. "Did she inherit that from me? Along with your stubbornness and your crooked smile?" Elena smiled sadly. "You can go to the recital if you want. As a family friend for now." "For now," Arthur repeated hopefully. "But we need to set limits, Arthur. Sophia is sensitive, a dreamer. I can't allow her to get hurt." "Neither can I," he promised. "I'll win back both of your trust, Elena, no matter how long it takes." Elena's phone vibrated. It was time to pick Sophia up from school. The reality of the outside world intruded on the moment again. "We need to be careful," she warned, walking towards the door. "The Maxwells aren't the only ones who can use Sophia against you. Your world is dangerous, Arthur." "Then I'm going to change it," he replied simply. "For her, for us." Elena paused in the doorway, turning around one last time. 7 years ago, you said you would build an empire. You've done it. But at what cost?" With those words, she left, leaving Arthur alone with his thoughts and a new mission: to prove that the man Elena loved still existed, buried under years of ambition and regret. Looking at the photo of Sophia smiling, Arthur made a silent promise. No matter what the Maxwells or anyone else tried, he would protect his newfound family, even if it meant sacrificing everything he had built. The drizzle outside began to thicken, washing over the city like tears from the sky, while inside Mendoza Tower, a man began to plan not only his redemption, but the rebuilding of a family torn apart by secrets and misunderstandings. The music room at St. Martin's Primary School vibrated with the soft notes of Claire de Lune. Sophia, seated at the piano, rehearsed with concentration, her tiny fingers dancing over the keys with a grace that made Elena's heart ache. It was like watching Arthur play again, the same serene expression, the same subtle movement of the shoulders accompanying the melody. "She has a natural gift," commented Mrs. Henderson, the music teacher, adjusting her tortoiseshell glasses. "I rarely see such sensitivity in someone so young." Elena nodded, unable to trust her voice. It was the last week of rehearsals before the recital, and every note seemed to carry the weight of the decision she would have to make. "Mom, do you think Mr. Mendoza will like it?" Sophia asked as she finished the piece, her green eyes shining with anticipation. I'm sure he will, darling, Elena replied, trying to keep her voice steady. How could she explain to a 7-year-old that that family friend was actually her father? The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Elena turn around. Arthur was standing in the doorway of the music room, still in his business suit, but with his tie slightly loosened, a small sign of vulnerability that only Elena would recognize. Mr. Mendoza, Sophia exclaimed, running towards him. You came to hear me play. Arthur crouched down to her height, his eyes watering. You wouldn't miss it, little pianist. Mrs. Henderson, sensing the tension in the air, discreetly left the room, leaving the little family in a moment that seemed suspended in time. Can I play again? Sophia asked, already returning to the piano. It's my favorite song. It was my father's favorite too, Arthur commented softly, exchanging a meaningful glance with Elena. He taught me to play when I was about your age. Sophia began to play again, and Arthur approached the piano, watching every movement with a mixture of pride and regret. Elena stood back, arms crossed, a defensive posture that had become her shield in recent years. Do you still play? Elena asked quietly, when Sophia was concentrating on a particularly difficult passage. No, Arthur replied, his voice laden with regret. I stopped the night you left. The piano reminded me so much of you. The confession hit Elena like a punch in the gut. Before she could reply, her phone vibrated. It was a message from Olivia. Urgent. Turn on the TV now. With trembling hands, Elena grabbed her tablet from her bag and accessed a news channel. The headline made her blood run cold. Secret Heritage. The hidden daughter of tycoon Arthur Mendoza. Arthur, noticing her pallor, quickly approached her. His eyes darkened when he saw the news, accompanied by photos of Sophia at school. The Maxwells, he muttered, the anger evident in his voice. Sophia, darling, Elena called out, miraculously remaining calm. It's time to go. But Mom, I still haven't shown Mr. Mendoza the other song. Another day, my love. We need to go now. Arthur picked up his phone, already dialing numbers. I'll send security to your apartment. Elena, please let me help this time. Help, Elena hissed, low enough for Sophia not to hear. That's exactly what I was afraid of. Your world has just invaded hers. Our world, Arthur corrected gently. She's our daughter, Elena. Let me protect her. Let me be the father she deserves. Sophia, oblivious to the tension, kept her sheet music in her pink backpack with unicorns on it. The contrast between her innocence and the storm brewing was painfully visible. Come to my penthouse, Arthur suggested. It's safer, there's 24-hour security. No, Elena replied firmly. I won't expose you any further. Then let me come with you, please, he added, his voice breaking slightly. I can't lose you both again. Elena looked at Sophia, who was now watching them curiously. As always, her daughter seemed to sense when something important was happening. Is Mom sad? Sophia asked, approaching and taking her hand. Elena crouched down, hugging her daughter. No, my love. Mom's just worried. Mr. Mendoza can help us, Sophia said with the simplicity typical of children. He looks like a superhero in that suit. Arthur stifled an emotional laugh, while Elena fought back tears. How could her daughter see so clearly what she herself refused to see? All right, Elena finally gave in. But let's go to Aunt Olivia's house. It's more discreet than your penthouse. Arthur nodded, already organizing the logistics over the phone. Within minutes, an armored car was waiting for them at the back of the school. As Sophia said goodbye to the piano with one last chord of Clair de Lune, Elena watched Arthur make security arrangements with an efficiency that reminded her of the man she had fallen in love with. Protective, decisive, tireless when it came to those he loved. It's starting, isn't it? She asked softly. The storm I've always feared. Arthur put the phone away, his eyes meeting hers. Yes, but this time, we're going to face it together. Sophia took each of their hands, creating an involuntary bridge between past and present. Can we play the piano at Aunt Olivia's? Of course, Princess, Arthur replied, unconsciously using the nickname Elena used to use. And maybe I can play a bit with you. As they left the school, the last notes of Clair de Lune seemed to echo through the empty corridors, a bittersweet melody that, like their lives, was about to take on a new composition. Olivia's apartment in Brooklyn was a cozy haven of terracotta-colored walls and vintage furniture. Through the large windows, you could see the rain that was now falling heavily on the city, as if the sky shared the tension that hung in the air. "Did you see that?" Olivia asked as soon as she opened the door, her tablet showing more sensationalist headlines. "The Mendoza Empire has a princess. They're going crazy with the story." Sophia ran to hug her godmother, while Elena and Arthur exchanged worried glances. The little girl was soon distracted by Luna, Olivia's Siamese cat, leaving the adults free to talk. "The Maxwells wasted no time," Arthur said, loosening his tie even more. "But I don't understand how they got the photos so quickly." "Someone at school must have leaked them," Olivia suggested, pouring coffee for everyone at the small dining table. That new secretary always seemed very interested in Sophia's life. Elena remained silent, watching her daughter play with the cat. It was surreal to see how, in a matter of days, her carefully constructed life was falling apart. "We need a plan," Arthur finally said, his voice taking on the decisive tone Elena knew well from their time working together. "We can't let the Maxwells control the narrative." "And what would your suggestion be?" Elena asked, trying to control the bitterness in her voice. "A press conference? Posed photos of the happy family reunited?" "No," Arthur replied softly. "We need to protect Sophia, but we also need to be honest with her." As if she had heard her name, Sophia approached the table, carrying Luna in her arms. "Why are we at Aunt Olivia's? Is it because people are taking pictures of me?" Elena felt her heart squeeze. Her daughter had always been too perceptive for her own good. Arthur instinctively moved closer to Sophia, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by anyone. "Sophia, darling," Elena began, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to talk about something very important. Is it about Mr. Mendoza being my father?" The silence that followed was deafening. Luna jumped off Sophia's lap, startled by the sudden tension in the room. How do you know?" Elena managed to ask. Sophia shrugged, with that disconcerting simplicity of children. "He has the same crooked smile as me, and he plays the piano like me. And whenever he's around, you look like you've seen a ghost, Mom." Arthur let out an emotional laugh, while Elena fought back tears. Olivia discreetly retreated to the kitchen, giving the family the space they needed. "Yes, Sophia," Arthur confirmed, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I'm your father. Why haven't you come to see me before?" The question was innocent, but charged with a pain that affected both Elena and Arthur. "Because I made mistakes," Arthur replied, glancing briefly at Elena. "Mistakes that hurt your mother very deeply, and she was trying to protect you." "Like in Disney movies?" Sophia asked, her green eyes alternating between the two of them. "When the prince does something silly and the princess runs away?" Elena couldn't hold back a sob of laughter amidst the tears. "Something like that, my love. But in the movies they always forgive each other in the end," Sophia continued, with the implacable logic of childhood. "Because love is stronger than mistakes." Arthur reached across the table, lightly touching Elena's fingers. "Sometimes, little one, life is more complicated than the movies. But you're right about one thing. Love is very strong." Thunder rattled the windows, making Sophia jump. Elena instinctively hugged her, and Arthur moved to protect them both, creating a family cocoon that, for a moment, seemed too perfect to be real. "Are the bad people going to keep taking pictures of me?" Sophia asked against her mother's shoulder. "I won't let them hurt you," Arthur promised, his voice laden with determination. "None of you." Arthur's phone vibrated. It was a message from his lawyer. His face darkened as he read the contents. "What is it?" Elena asked, recognizing that expression. "Victoria Maxwell is giving a live interview. She's telling her side of the story." Olivia quickly returned from the kitchen with her tablet. On the screen, Victoria Maxwell, elegant in a red suit, spoke with false compassion about how she had kept the terrible secret for years, protecting Arthur's reputation. "She's reversing everything," Elena whispered, horrified. "Mom?" Sophia called out, feeling the tension growing. "Can we play the piano? Music always calms you down." It was amazing how her daughter, even at such a young age, knew exactly what to say. Elena looked at Arthur, who nodded softly. "I'll deal with it," he promised, already typing furiously into his phone. "You two, go and play. Music has always been what brought us together, hasn't it?" Olivia had an old upright piano in the corner of the room. Sophia ran over to it, followed by Elena. Soon, the notes of Claire de Lune filled the apartment, creating a bubble of peace in the midst of the storm roaring outside, and the one yet to come. Arthur watched mother and daughter at the piano, his heart torn between his love for them and the Maxwells' growing anger. On his phone, urgent messages were piling up, but for a few minutes, he allowed the music to take him back to a time when everything was simpler, when he and Elena dreamed of a future together. The storm was just beginning, but for the first time in 7 years, they would face it together, as a family. The next morning dawned with the consequences of Victoria Maxwell's interview splashed all over the headlines. Arthur watched the first rays of sunlight through the windows of Olivia's apartment, where he had spent the night on the sofa, standing guard over his newfound family. Sophia was sleeping in the guest room with Elena, while Olivia had left early for her job as editor-in-chief of a fashion magazine. The morning silence was broken by the soft sound of footsteps. Elena emerged from the hallway, still wearing her navy blue robe. "You haven't slept," she noted. "Not a question." "I couldn't," Arthur admitted, running a hand through his messy hair. "Victoria is telling a very convincing story about how she tried to warn me about her pregnancy, but I was too busy with the Mendoza Empire to care." Elena sat in the opposite armchair, pulling her knees to her chest, a gesture Arthur remembered well from their days together, when she was especially vulnerable. "Why does she hate us so much?" Elena asked softly. "Because I rejected her. Not just that night, but years before, when Robert tried to arrange our marriage." Arthur sighed deeply. "What you don't know is that night, I had resigned from the board." Elena looked up in surprise. "What?" "I was going to tell you at dinner. I'd found independent investors. I was going to start my own company. I wanted to build something of our own, away from the Maxwells' influence." He laughed humorlessly. "Victoria's kiss was her last desperate attempt to keep me under her father's control." The sound of dishes in the kitchen interrupted the conversation. Sophia had woken up and was apparently trying to prepare breakfast. "Sophia, don't touch the stove," Elena called out, getting up quickly. "I'm not touching it, Mom. I'm just getting cereal." Arthur followed Elena into the kitchen, where they found Sophia precariously balancing a box of cereal in a bowl. "Let me help you, Princess," Arthur offered, grabbing the milk from the fridge. "Are you going to have breakfast with us?" Sophia asked hopefully. "If your mother lets me," he replied, looking at Elena. Before she could reply, Arthur's phone rang. It was Charlotte, his assistant. "Mr. Mendoza, Robert Maxwell is calling an extraordinary board meeting for this afternoon. They want to vote you out of office." Arthur felt his blood run cold. "On what grounds?" "Misconduct and concealment of material information from shareholders. Mr. Mendoza, they have documents, old contracts, emails. They look manipulated, but I understand. I'll be there in 2 hours." Hanging up the phone, Arthur found Elena watching him intensely. "They're going to try to bring you down, aren't they?" she asked. "Yes, but that's not what worries me." He hesitated, looking at Sophia, who was happily eating her cereal. "Elena, we need to talk in private." In Olivia's small office, Arthur showed Elena the documents Charlotte had just sent. "They altered our old emails," he explained. "They made it look like I knew about the pregnancy from the start, and chose to keep you away to protect the company. But that's ridiculous. I never told you about the pregnancy. It doesn't matter. Their story is that you tried to blackmail me, that I paid you to disappear, and that now you've come back wanting more." Elena staggered, leaning on the desk. "They're going to destroy my reputation. Sophia. Oh God, Sophia will grow up hearing these lies about me." "No," Arthur said firmly, holding her shoulders. "I won't let that happen. How can you stop it? They have power, connections, and I have the truth." Arthur picked up his phone again, and something else they didn't expect. He showed Elena a security video from that fateful night. In it, Victoria could clearly be seen throwing herself at Arthur, the kiss forced, and him pushing her away immediately. "I've kept it all these years, knowing that one day the Maxwells would try something like this, but I never imagined," his voice faltered, "I never imagined that the price would be losing you and our daughter." Elena watched the video in shock, silent tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you try to show me this before?" "I tried, Elena, for months. But you had completely disappeared. You changed your number, your address. Olivia was the only one who knew where you were, and she refused to tell me. She was protecting me." Elena whispered, protecting me from a danger that never existed. A noise from the kitchen brought them back to reality. Sophia was humming as she washed her bowl, a scene so normal, so precious in its simplicity. "What are we going to do?" Elena asked, wiping away her tears. "I'm going to face the council," Arthur replied. "But first, I need you to trust me one last time." "How?" "Marry me." Elena blinked, stunned. "What?" "Not for love, if you're not ready for that yet. But for Sophia. If we get married now, before the council meeting, the Maxwells lose their main argument. They can't claim that I've tried to hide my family if I'm publicly assuming it. Arthur, I know it's crazy. I know it's too much to ask after everything. But it's the only way to protect both of you legally. As my wife, and you'll have access to resources to fight them. As my legitimate daughter, Sophia will be protected." In the silence that followed, they could hear Sophia still humming in the kitchen, oblivious to the drama that was unfolding. "Everything I've done," Elena finally said, "has been to protect her. And now we can protect her together," Arthur added softly. "As it should have been from the beginning." Elena looked once more at the video frozen on her cell phone screen, the proof that her last 7 years had been built on a misunderstanding, a mistake that had cost them all so much. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'll marry you." The sound of small footsteps running down the corridor preceded Sophia bursting into the office. "Mom, Dad, look, I washed the bowl myself." It was the first time Sophia had called Arthur father. The moment was as precious as it was fragile, like a soap bubble floating over a minefield. The battle against the Maxwells had only just begun, but now they would fight as a family built on the rubble of misunderstandings, but reborn through the love of a little girl who, without knowing it, was bringing two broken hearts back together. The Brooklyn registry office wasn't exactly the place where Elena had imagined getting married, but at 11 o'clock that morning, she found herself there, wearing a pale blue dress borrowed from Olivia, and holding a small bouquet of daisies that Sophia had insisted on buying from the flower shop around the corner. "Are you sure about this?" Olivia asked for the 10th time, adjusting the lace of Sophia's makeshift bridesmaid dress. "No," Elena answered honestly, "but it's the only way." Arthur arrived punctually, accompanied by his lawyer, Marcus Chen, who was carrying a briefcase full of documents. Even in that surreal situation, Elena couldn't help noticing how elegant Arthur looked in his navy suit, a white flower on his lapel matching her bouquet, a detail he must have coordinated in a hurry. "The Maxwells have just entered the company building," Marcus reported discreetly. "The board meeting starts in 2 hours. "Long enough," Arthur replied, his eyes meeting Elena's. "Are you ready?" Before she could answer, Sophia ran to wrap her arms around Arthur's legs. "Daddy, look at my dress. Aunt Olivia said I look like a princess." "You are a princess," he smiled, crouching down so that he was at her height. "The most beautiful of all, the justice of the peace." A gray-haired gentleman called Johnson snorted softly. "May we begin?" The ceremony was brief and surprisingly emotional. When it came time for the vows, Elena felt her hands trembling in Arthur's. Arthur James Mendoza," he began, his voice firm but charged with emotion. "Take you, Elena Catherine Porter, to be my wife. I promise to protect you and our daughter with every breath, every beat of my heart, and to spend the rest of my life making up for the years we've lost." Elena swallowed, tears threatening to fall. These were not the protocol vows the judge had suggested. Elena Catherine Porter," she began, her voice trembling, "take you, Arthur James Mendoza, to be my husband. I promise." She hesitated, looking at Sophia, who was watching everything with shining eyes. "I promise to build a new history, where the misunderstandings of the past can be turned into lessons for the future." When the judge declared them man and wife, Sophia applauded enthusiastically, while Olivia discreetly wiped away a tear. "Now you have to kiss," Sophia exclaimed. "Just like in fairy tales." Elena and Arthur exchanged a hesitant glance. After 7 years, their first kiss would take place there, in a Brooklyn registry office, with an audience of 3 people. Arthur leaned in gently, his lips meeting Elena's in a gentle, almost shy kiss. The familiar touch, even after so many years, awakened memories they had both tried to bury. The moment was interrupted by Marcus. "Phone. Arthur, we have to go. Victoria Maxwell is giving another interview." On Olivia's tablet, they watched in horror as Victoria, impeccable in a red dress, spoke with false concern about how Elena had manipulated Arthur all these years. Close sources confirmed that Miss Porter worked as Mr. Mendoza's assistant, only to get closer to the family fortune, Victoria said, her voice distilling sugary venom. And now, years later, she returns with a child, clearly aiming to. Arthur turned off the tablet abruptly. Enough. It's time to put an end to this. What are you going to do? Elena asked, still holding his hand. I'm going to tell you our story. The real story. He turned to Marcus. Prepare the conference room. I want all the major media outlets present. Arthur, no, Elena protested. Exposing everything publicly will only make things worse. Trust me, he urged, holding her face between his hands. For the first time in 7 years, let me fight for our family. Sophia, who had been unusually quiet, tugged at Elena's dress. Mom, why is the girl in red saying bad things about you? Elena crouched down, hugging her daughter. Sometimes, my love, people say bad things when they're hurt or angry. Like when Tommy in my class said I didn't have a father, Sophia asked innocently, making both Elena and Arthur freeze. When did that happen? Elena asked, horrified. Last week, but I told him he was wrong because I always knew that my father would come and find me one day. Sophia smiled at Arthur. And you did, didn't you? Arthur joined in the hug, his tears now flowing freely. Yes, princess, and I'm never leaving. Olivia sniffled softly. I hate to interrupt, but if we're going to take on the Maxwells, we need a plan. Marcus agreed, checking his watch. The council meeting is in an hour. With the marriage registered, they lose some of their ammunition, but they still have the forged emails. And we have the video, Arthur reminded him. But I don't just want to defend myself. I want to expose everything the Maxwells have done over the years. How? Elena asked. Charlotte, Arthur smiled, picking up his phone. My assistant isn't just efficient. She's been keeping evidence of the Maxwells' manipulations for years, waiting for the right moment. We need someone to stay with Sophia during the meeting, Elena reminded him. I'll stay with her, Olivia offered. We can have our own wedding party at home, with lots of ice cream. What do you think, Sophia? Can it be chocolate? While Sophia and Olivia discussed ice cream flavors, Elena and Arthur exchanged one last look. This wasn't how they had imagined their wedding day, but somehow it seemed appropriate. A union forged not just out of love, but out of a need to protect what mattered most, their family. Are you ready, Mrs. Mendoza? Arthur asked softly, offering his arm. Elena took his hand, feeling the new ring on her finger. Ready, Mr. Mendoza. The battle that awaited them would be difficult, but for the first time in 7 years they would face it together, and they had something the Maxwells would never understand. The unconditional love of a little girl who, without knowing it, had built a bridge over the chasm that separated her parents. As they left the registry office, the midday sun shone over Manhattan, as if even the sky knew that this was not an ending, but a new beginning. The lobby of the Mendoza Tower was buzzing with the nervous energy of dozens of journalists and photographers. Elena, now officially Elena Mendoza, felt the weight of every gaze as she crossed the lobby alongside Arthur. Their intertwined fingers transmitted a silent strength, even when the flashes of the cameras momentarily blinded them. Mr. Mendoza, is it true that you hid your daughter for years? Mrs. Mendoza, how much money did you ask for to reveal the existence of the child? Arthur, did you know about the pregnancy when she left? The questions were fired like bullets, but Arthur held his ground, guiding Elena to the private elevators. Marcus Chen followed closely behind, carrying a briefcase that contained not only the video of the fateful night, but 7 years of evidence meticulously collected by Charlotte. In the elevator, Elena finally let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Is Sophia safe with Olivia? I've sent 2 security guards to her apartment, Arthur assured her. And I've installed a monitoring system. Our daughter is protected. Our daughter. The words still sounded strange, but comforting. The 50th floor was silent when they arrived, but the tension was palpable. Charlotte was waiting for them in the boardroom, her normally calm face betraying concern. They're all inside now, she informed them. Victoria arrived 10 minutes ago, accompanied by 3 lawyers. What about the video? Arthur asked. Ready for screening. I also have here, she handed over a USB stick, all the original emails that prove the tampering with the documents presented by the Maxwells. Arthur held the small device as if it were a weapon. In a way, it was. Elena, he turned to his now wife. You don't need to come in. I can handle this myself. Elena adjusted her posture, lifting her chin. No, they've tried to destroy our family twice. I won't let them try a third. The doors to the meeting room opened to reveal the full council, 12 men and women in expensive suits, all looking on with expressions that varied between curiosity and contempt. Robert Maxwell occupied the head of the table, Victoria at his right side, her dress as red as fresh blood. Ah, the couple of the moment, Victoria exclaimed with false sweetness. Or should I say, newlyweds. Congratulations on the rushed wedding. No more games, Victoria, Arthur replied coldly. We all know why we're here. Robert Maxwell snorted, assuming his role as chairman of the board. We're here to discuss your conduct, Arthur. Hiding the existence of an heiress. I haven't hidden anything, Arthur interrupted, his voice cutting. In fact, I have something that everyone needs to see. With a nod to Charlotte, the lights dimmed and a screen descended from the ceiling. The video of the night of the kiss began to play crystal clear in its undeniable truth. Victoria visibly paled as the scene unfolded, her throwing herself at Arthur, him immediately pushing her away, the heated argument that followed. That doesn't prove anything, she tried to argue, but her voice shook. No? Arthur asked, signaling Charlotte to continue. Then maybe the original emails will prove it, or the recordings of your threats over the years. Or maybe, he paused dramatically, the records of your father's bank transfers to the hackers who forged the documents presented today. Robert Maxwell stood up abruptly. That's absurd. A desperate attempt to... Of what, Mr. Maxwell? Elena finally spoke, her voice surprisingly firm. To show how you and your daughter have manipulated lives for years, how you destroyed families for power. You're nothing but an opportunist. Victoria spat the words. A secretary who seduced the boss, and she was much more than my secretary, Arthur interrupted. Elena is, the woman I love. The woman you drove away from me with lies and manipulation, the mother of my daughter, who spent 7 years protecting our little girl from the toxic world you created. The silence that followed was deafening. The other council members looked at each other, clearly re-evaluating their positions. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Marcus Chen took the floor. I have enough evidence here not only to clear Mr. Mendoza's name, but to initiate criminal proceedings against the Maxwells for fraud, document manipulation, and blackmail. Victoria stood up abruptly, her face contorted with rage. You can't do that, Daddy. Say something. But Robert Maxwell seemed to have aged 10 years in the last few minutes. It's over, Victoria, he muttered. No, she shouted, advancing towards Elena. You've ruined everything. You and that bastard. Arthur put himself between them with one swift movement. Never again, he growled. Refer to my daughter like that. Security guards entered the room, called discreetly by Charlotte. Victoria was restrained before she could do any more damage, her hysterical screams echoing through the corridors as she was escorted out. Mr. Maxwell, one of the senior counselors, spoke up. I suggest you voluntarily withdraw from the council. Immediately. Robert nodded defeatedly, gathering up his papers with trembling hands. As the doors closed behind the Maxwells, Elena felt her legs go weak. Arthur held her firmly, guiding her to a chair. Is it over? She asked softly. Almost, he replied, turning to the council. Gentlemen, ladies, I accept your apologies for today's confusion. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to take my wife home. Our daughter is waiting. No one dared protest. One by one, the counselors left, many stopping to offer belated congratulations on the wedding. In the private elevator, descending into the now empty lobby, Elena finally allowed the tears to fall. 7 years, she sobbed. We've lost 7 years. No, Arthur corrected her gently, holding her face between his hands. We didn't. Sophia had 7 years of unconditional love and protection. Now we have the rest of our lives to create new memories. Together. Elena's phone vibrated. It was a photo of Sophia and Olivia, chocolatey smiles, and a message. When are you coming back? There's still plenty of ice cream. Elena showed the photo to Arthur, who smiled with excitement. What do you think? Are you ready for our first night as an official family? More than ready, she replied, allowing herself to smile for the first time that crazy day. As they left the Mendoza Tower, The sun began to set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was a new beginning, not just for Elena and Arthur, but for little Sophia, who would finally have the complete family she had always dreamed of. And somewhere in Brooklyn, a bowl of chocolate ice cream was waiting to celebrate not just a victory, but the rebirth of a love that not even 7 years of separation could erase. Olivia's apartment had turned into a sugary war zone. Empty ice cream bowls piled up in the sink, and trails of chocolate syrup marked the way to the living room, where Sophia, still in her bridesmaid dress, was teaching Arthur how to braid his favorite doll. "No, Dad, you have to separate it into 3 equal parts," she instructed patiently, while Arthur, the powerful CEO, struggled with the synthetic strands of the doll's hair. Elena watched the scene from the kitchen, where she helped Olivia clean up the mess from the ice cream festival. The domesticity of the moment was as surreal as it was comforting. "So," Olivia began, lowering her voice, "how did it really go at the Mendoza Tower?" "Victoria lost control," Elena replied, shuddering as she remembered. "For a moment I thought she was going to physically attack me." "That viper," Olivia muttered. "At least it's all over now, right?" Elena hesitated, looking at Arthur and Sophia. "Almost. We still have to deal with the press, organize Sophia's official documentation, decide where we're going to live." "Wait," Olivia interrupted her. "Where are you going to live? You're not going to that penthouse of his, are you?" "I don't know, Liv. Everything's happening so fast." As if he had heard her name, Arthur looked up, meeting her gaze across the room. Even after 7 years, he could still read her expressions. "Sophia, princess," he called. "How about showing your mother how the braid turned out?" Sophia ran up to Elena, proudly showing off the crooked braid Arthur had managed to make. "Look, Mom, Daddy's learning." "It's beautiful, my love," Elena smiled, fixing a loose bow on her daughter's dress. "But I think it's time to change, don't you? We don't want to stain Aunt Olivia's dress." As Sophia ran to change, Arthur approached the kitchen. "We need to talk about practical arrangements," he said softly. "Yes," Elena agreed. "Sophia has school tomorrow, and I have work." "About that," Arthur interrupted gently, "I think we should keep Sophia at home for a few days, until the dust settles. The press will be surrounding the school." Elena felt her stomach sink. It was exactly the kind of situation she had always feared. "I can work from home this week," Olivia offered. "Stay with her while you sort things out." "Actually," Arthur hesitated, "I was thinking we could take Sophia to my country house in Connecticut. It's only 2 hours from the city, secluded and safe. We could have a few days to adjust as a family." "Connecticut," Elena repeated in surprise. "It's perfect," Sophia exclaimed, returning to the living room in her favorite unicorn pajamas. "Can we have a picnic? And swim? Is there a pool?" "There's a pool, a lake, and even a stable with horses." Arthur smiled. Sophia's eyes widened. "Real horses?" "Sophia," Elena intervened. "We can't just—" "Please, Mom," Sophia begged. "It'll be like a vacation, and we can take Aunt Olivia too." Elena looked at Olivia for support, but her friend just shrugged. "Maybe it's not such a bad idea, Lena. You need time to adjust, away from the eyes of the media." "What about your job?" Elena asked Arthur. "I can manage remotely for a few days. Charlotte is more than capable of handling the office, especially now that the Maxwells are no longer a problem." Elena felt the weight of the last 24 hours on her shoulders. An unexpected wedding, a corporate battle, and now a temporary move to the countryside. It was too much to process. "Mom's got that worried look on her face," Sophia commented to Arthur in a loud whisper. Arthur approached Elena, gently touching her arm. "Hey, we don't have to decide everything now, but just think, a few days of peace, away from everything, a chance to get to know each other again, to make memories as a family." "Can we take the piano?" Sophia asked hopefully. "There's a grand piano in the house library," Arthur replied, without taking his eyes off Elena. "A library?" Sophia's eyes lit up. "With lots of books? Hundreds of them." Elena felt her resistance melt at her daughter's enthusiasm. "When would we leave?" "Tomorrow morning," Arthur suggested. "I can send a car to pick up your things today." "I'll help you pack," Olivia offered. "And I promise to visit at the weekend." Sophia started jumping for joy. The Mendoza estate in Connecticut was like a page torn from a Victorian novel. The main house, a stone mansion with ivy climbing up its walls, stood majestically at the end of a lane lined with centuries-old oak trees. Autumn had painted the landscape in shades of red and gold, creating an almost magical setting. "It looks like a castle," Sophia exclaimed, her nose pressed against the car window as they drove up the circular driveway. Elena had to admit that the place was impressive. Manicured gardens stretched as far as the eye could see, and in the distance you could see the lake Arthur had mentioned, its waters sparkling in the morning sun. "Welcome to your new home," Arthur said softly, parking the car. Home. The word echoed in Elena's mind. After 7 years of building a modest but welcoming home for Sophia, here she was, standing in front of a mansion that seemed straight out of her most secret dreams. Luna, Olivia's cat, meowed from her carrier, apparently eager to explore the new territory. "Can I let Luna out?" Sophia asked, already undoing her seatbelt. "After we get settled in, dear," Elena replied automatically, still absorbing the grandeur of the place. The front door opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with a warm smile. "Mr. Mendoza, we've prepared everything as requested." "Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds," Arthur replied. "This is my wife, Elena, and our daughter, Sophia." Mrs. Reynolds, apparently the housekeeper, cracked an even bigger smile. "At last I get to meet the little pianist. The piano was tuned this morning, dear." Sophia's eyes sparkled. "Can we see the piano now, Daddy?" "First," Arthur smiled, "how about seeing your room?" The inside of the house was just as impressive as the outside. Antique furniture blended harmoniously with modern pieces, and large windows allowed natural light to flood every room. The bedroom prepared for Sophia was a dream in shades of pink and gold. A 4-poster bed, bookshelves full of children's books, and even a small wall piano filled the space. It's perfect," Elena whispered, watching Sophia run around, exploring every detail. "I had it decorated as soon as I found out about her," Arthur admitted softly. "Over the last few weeks, while I was trying to process everything, it's helped me come to terms with reality." Elena felt tears forming. It was easy to forget that Arthur was also processing 7 years of lost fatherhood. "Mom, look, there's a swing on the balcony," Sophia called out, already hanging onto the wooden structure that protruded over the garden. "Sophia, look out!" Elena and Arthur exclaimed simultaneously, moving towards her. They looked at each other, surprised at the synchronicity, before laughing softly. "I guess some paternal instincts are natural," Arthur commented. The rest of the day was spent exploring the estate. Sophia insisted on meeting the horses, and Elena discovered that her daughter had a natural talent for riding, yet another trait inherited from her father. In the evening, while Sophia was playing with Luna in the garden under Mrs. Reynolds' supervision, Elena found Arthur in the library, standing in front of the grand piano. "Do you still play?" she asked softly. "No," he replied, running his fingers lightly over the keys. "As I said before, I stopped the night you left." Elena approached the piano, remembering so many nights when he played for her in their old apartment. "Play with me," Arthur asked, sitting down on the bench and making room for her. "Arthur, just once." For Sophia, Elena hesitated before sitting down next to him. The familiar scent of his cologne mixed with the smell of old library books transported her to another time, another memory. The first notes of Claire de Lune filled the air. Her fingers found the keys as if the last 7 years had never existed, dancing in perfect harmony with Arthur's. "I knew I'd find you here. I knew I'd find you here," Sophia exclaimed, entering the library with Luna at her heels. "Can I play too?" Arthur moved, creating space between him and Elena. Sophia settled between them, her small hands joining in the melody with surprising precision. The setting sun streamed through the library's stained glass windows, creating colorful patterns that danced across the piano as 3 pairs of hands wove music together for the first time. "This is better than Disney movies," Sophia commented when they had finished. "Why?" Elena asked, smoothing a lock of her daughter's hair. "Because it's real," she replied simply. "We're a real family now." Luna chose that moment to jump on the piano, causing a dissonant chord that made everyone laugh. "Mrs. Reynolds has prepared a picnic for us to have dinner in the winter garden," Arthur announced. "What do you think? Can we bring candles?" Sophia asked. "Aunt Olivia said that romantic dinners have to have candles." Elena blushed slightly, but Arthur just smiled. "Of course, princess. All the candles you want." As they made their way to the winter garden, Elena realized that, for the first time since meeting Arthur again, She wasn't thinking about the past or worrying about the future. She was simply present, living every moment. The winter garden was a Victorian structure of glass and wrought iron, filled with exotic plants and hanging lanterns that created a magical atmosphere. Mrs. Reynolds had prepared a veritable feast, with cushions scattered across the floor and a variety of dishes that would make any child and adult happy. "This is perfect," Sophia declared, settling down between the cushions with Luna by her side. Elena watched her daughter excitedly sharing stories with Arthur, who drank up every word as if they were drops of liquid gold. 7 years of lost stories, being recovered one laugh at a time. Perhaps Sophia was right. Maybe this was better than any fairy tale because it was real, with all its imperfections and possibilities. And there, under the stars that were beginning to shine through the glass roof of the winter garden, Elena allowed herself to believe that some happy endings don't have to be perfect to be true. The first week in Connecticut passed like a hazy dream. The days blended into a smooth routine of horseback riding, impromptu piano lessons, and picnics by the lake. Elena watched in amazement as Arthur and Sophia developed their own love language, made up of small gestures and shared discoveries. That particular morning, Elena woke up to the sound of laughter coming from the garden. From the window of her bedroom, separate from Arthur's, an arrangement silently agreed between them. She saw father and daughter trying to build a treehouse. More to the left, "Dad," Sophia directed from the ground, while Arthur, in jeans and a t-shirt, such a different sight from the polished executive, tried to balance a plank of wood. "Like this?" he asked, adjusting his position. "Perfect. It's going to be the balcony of the house, and so I can read my books up there." Elena smiled, remembering how many times Sophia had asked for a treehouse in her old apartment, an impossible wish to fulfill in Manhattan. The sound of her phone brought her back to reality. It was Olivia. "How's the family retreat?" her friend asked without preamble. "Surreal," Elena answered honestly. "It's like living in a magical bubble, Liv. Sophia is so happy. And you? How are you?" Elena hesitated, confused. "Arthur he's exactly as I remembered, but also completely different." "What do you mean?" "He's so natural with Sophia, so devoted. Yesterday they spent 2 hours discussing The Little Prince in the library. And yet you're scared," Olivia added. "Yes," Elena sighed. "What if this is all temporary? What if we go back to Manhattan and reality destroys this peace we've built up here?" A particularly loud noise from the garden attracted her attention again. Arthur had dropped some tools, and Sophia laughed as Luna, who had been watching them from the grass, jumped up in fright. "Lena," Olivia called softly. "Sometimes love is simpler than we think. Maybe it's time to stop looking for problems and start accepting the solutions that life is offering you." After hanging up, Elena went downstairs for breakfast, finding Mrs. Reynolds preparing pancakes. "Mr. Mendoza ordered your favorites," the housekeeper smiled. "With strawberries and whipped cream, right?" Elena blinked in surprise. "He remembered. He never forgets, dear Mrs. Reynolds replied enigmatically, before retreating to the pantry. Arthur and Sophia entered shortly afterwards, flushed from working in the garden. "Mama!" Sophia ran to hug her. "Dad's building a treehouse, and he says we can paint it pink and put up curtains." "As long as you promise to be careful," Elena replied automatically. "I'm always careful," Sophia protested, reaching for a pancake. "Aren't I, Dad?" "The most careful of princesses," Arthur agreed, pouring Elena some coffee. 2 spoonfuls of sugar and a touch of cinnamon, right? Elena froze with the cup halfway to her mouth, another detail that he had kept all these years. The rest of the coffee took place in a light atmosphere, with Sophia detailing her elaborate plans for the treehouse. When she had finished, she ran out into the garden with Luna, leaving her parents alone. "Elena," Arthur began hesitantly, "there's something I want to show you." He led her into the library, stopping in front of a side door she hadn't noticed before. When he opened it, Elena lost her breath. It was a music studio complete with different instruments, but what caught her eye was the wall covered in framed sheet music, all the songs they used to play together. "I built this after you left," Arthur explained softly. "I couldn't play, but I couldn't get rid of the memories either." Elena approached the sheet music, recognizing her own notes in the margins of some of them. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because," Arthur took a deep breath, "I want you to know that there was never anyone else, that these 7 years without you have been incomplete." Elena touched one of the pieces of sheet music with trembling fingers. It was The Heart Asks Pleasure First, the first song they had ever played together. "Arthur, I'm not asking for anything," he interrupted her gently. "I just want you to know that, while you were building a life with Sophia, I was here, treasuring every memory of us, waiting for a miracle to bring you back." The tears that Elena had been holding back all week finally overflowed. "I was so afraid," she confessed. "Afraid that I wouldn't be enough, that the corporate world would be more important, that Sophia would grow up seeing an absent father." Arthur moved closer, drying her tears with his thumbs. "And now? What are you afraid of now?" "Of waking up," she whispered. "That it's all a dream." "Then don't wake up," he replied, leaning down to kiss her. This time, unlike the protocol kiss at the registry office, there were 7 years of longing, regret, and love contained in the touch of their lips. Elena felt her defenses crumble as she responded to the kiss, her hands finding the familiar path to his hair. "Mom, Daddy, look what Luna's done." They were quickly separated when Sophia burst into the studio, carrying a very pleased Luna who had apparently found an empty bird's nest. "Are we doing a show today?" Sophia asked, noticing where they were. "Aunt Olivia's coming to visit, we can play for her." Elena and Arthur looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. Some melodies need time to be perfectly executed, but when they find their rhythm, the music flows naturally. "Of course, Princess," Arthur smiled. "How about we rehearse after lunch?" As Sophia skipped out of the studio, Elena felt Arthur's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. "One step at a time," he asked softly. "One step at a time," she agreed, squeezing his hand. Outside, the sound of Sophia humming mingled with the rustle of the wind in the trees and Luna's occasional meow, creating a symphony of its own, the music of a family finding its way home. The weekend arrived, bringing with it a gentle fall rain and Olivia's long-awaited visit. Sophia had insisted on preparing a special concert for her godmother, transforming the library into a small makeshift concert hall. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sophia announced solemnly to her audience of 3 people and a cat, "I present to you the first official performance of the Mendoza family." Elena and Arthur looked at each other, sitting side by side at the grand piano. Since their kiss in the music studio 2 days ago, a new intimacy had developed between them, cautious, but full of promise. Sophia had chosen an ambitious repertoire. They would start with Claire de Lune, followed by a simplified version of For Elisa that she was learning, and end with The Heart Asks Pleasure First, a surprise that Arthur had suggested. As the first notes filled the library, Olivia noticed something different about her friend. Elena had always had a tense expression when she played, as if every note needed to be perfect. But now, sitting next to Arthur, with Sophia between them, she seemed free. The music flowed naturally, 3 pairs of hands dancing over the keys in perfect harmony. Luna, lying on the piano, purred softly, as if approving of the performance. "Bravo," Olivia applauded when they had finished, discreetly wiping away a tear. "That was magical." "We're a family of musicians now," Sophia declared proudly. "Like the Von Trapp. I just hope we don't have to flee across the Alps," Arthur joked, making everyone laugh. Later, while Sophia was showing Olivia her new room, Elena found Arthur on the balcony, watching the rain. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, stopping next to him. "How funny life is," he replied, turning to her. "I spent 7 years building an empire, thinking it would fill the void. And now," he smiled softly, "now I realize that all I needed was the sound of a child laughing and the smell of strawberry pancakes in the morning." Elena felt her heart race. "Arthur, marry me," he said suddenly. "We're already married," she reminded him, confused. "No, Elena, marry me for real. Not out of necessity or to protect Sophia, but because we still love each other. Because 7 years haven't been enough to erase what we feel." Before she could reply, Sophia and Olivia appeared on the balcony. "Dad, can we make marshmallows in the fireplace?" Aunt Olivia brought chocolate. Arthur looked at Elena, a silent question in his eyes. "You go ahead," Elena replied. "We'll be right there." When they were alone again, Elena turned to Arthur. "How can you be so sure about us?" "Because every time I play the piano with you, every time I see you with Sophia, every little moment since we met again, it all confirms what I've always known. You're my home, Elena. You and Sophia are my true fortune." Elena felt tears forming. I've missed you too. Every day. Every time Sophia smiled in that crooked way. Just like you. Every time she played the piano, Arthur pulled her close, his lips meeting hers in a deep kiss, full of promise and redemption. Mom, Dad, the marshmallows are melting. They broke apart laughing, their foreheads still pressed together. Well, Arthur whispered, will you marry me? Just this once? Yes, Elena replied, her heart overflowing. 1,000 times yes. In the living room, they found Sophia and Olivia settled on cushions in front of the fireplace, chocolate and marshmallows scattered between them. Luna was watching everything from her position in the armchair closest to the fire. Sophia, Arthur called out, taking a seat next to his daughter. Your mother and I have something to tell you. Are you getting married again? She asked casually, biting into a marshmallow. How? Elena began, surprised. Why, Mom, Sophia rolled her eyes in the way that only a 7-year-old can do. You're always looking at each other like princes and princesses in the movies. And besides, she smiled, I asked for this as a Christmas present. But it's not even Christmas yet, Arthur commented, amused. I know, Sophia shrugged. But Santa sometimes delivers the most important presents first. Olivia laughed, pulling her goddaughter into a hug. You're very clever. You know that. Just like my mother, Sophia replied proudly. Dad always says that. Elena sat down next to Arthur, allowing him to put his arm around her. The fire crackled softly, casting dancing shadows on the walls, while outside the rain continued its gentle melody. Can we have the wedding here? Sophia asked sleepily, snuggling up between her parents. In the garden, with lots of flowers and music. Of course, princess, Arthur replied, kissing the top of her head. And can Luna be the maid of honor? Luna will be whatever you want, Elena smiled, watching the cat who was now sleeping peacefully. As Sophia fell asleep between them, Elena realized that Olivia was right. Sometimes love is simpler than we think. Sometimes, all we need is to trust that the most beautiful melodies are those that are born naturally, without rehearsal or pretense. The mansion in Connecticut, which had initially seemed like a temporary refuge, had become the stage for their new beginning, a place where old fears could be healed, where new dreams could blossom, and where a family, separated by misunderstandings, finally found its perfect harmony. And there, under the soft glow of the fire, with the sound of rain in the background and the warmth of her family around her, Elena learned that some happy endings are only the beginning of even more beautiful stories. If you were in Elena's shoes, after 7 years of protecting her daughter and building an independent life, would you be able to open your heart to Arthur again, even with all the evidence that he never stopped loving you? Or would the fear of getting hurt again be stronger than the possibility of giving your daughter the complete family she deserves? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below, letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.